storyteller is a professional storyteller. You've heard him before, and today we're very fortunate. He's here with a double feature. He's going to talk about something very local that many of you are probably aware of, and then a fascinating story about his older brother. That's Bob Bader, who is the youngest of 6 sons. It's a pleasure now to turn the microphone over to Bob Bader.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I really appreciate it. As Fred had mentioned, I have 2 short stories from my life, which I think is of interest to many of the residents here at North Shore Towers. More than 25 years ago, my wife, Helen Bader, and Nellie Sachs asked the board and management whether they could create a garden. Most of the people who reside here have come from homes, have had their own gardens where they were growing produce, and when they came to North Shore Towers, they kind of missed it. So North Shore Towers Garden Club was created around 1994. We have 64 lots, approximately 8 feet by 10 feet, and people joining the club for $35. We provide the water, the hoses, the small tools, and things to them to be able to plant, but they have to take care of their garden, weed it, and pick the produce afterward. Well, again, we stress to them, these are lots, not a plot, no burials. My wife, Helen, passed away suddenly last year, and Helen loved the garden. She was president, and I was what they call a schlepper. So the 2 of us, with some help from members, planned for the garden, and we did a little harvest after the end of the year where we did a barbecue for the members. Well, I have to tell you, since last year, we have 64 lots, and I have a waiting list for members who are moving in here who want to plant. And that waiting list will be used for next year. What I have created with the help of the Garden Club members, I had purchased 4 additional lots, calling it Helen's Garden. And in these lots, we are planting produce with the results going to 3 different food banks. One on Little Neck Parkway at the JCC, one by Belmont Racetrack on Hempstead Turnpike, and one with the Inn in Hempstead. And I have to tell you, we have grown over 50 bags of produce that we have donated to feed the hungry. It's North Shore Towers Garden Club and North Shore Towers, for allowing us to do it, have allowed us to grow this produce, pick it, and deliver it to the various food banks. One of them had suggested, let me make a sign and you can put on there, Helen's Giving Garden. I didn't want to put anything on to do anything that might interrupt or insult anybody, and I asked any garden club member only, if they want to put an additional plant in, they can do it. But please, they cannot pick the produce. That is only for the food banks. And the food banks know when we have some people picking it up and delivering it, they says North Shore Towers Thank you. I have another short story of an experience with the Bader boys. Fred had mentioned that there were multiple boys in my family, and Fred said, we have 6 boys. I am the baby, and I guess my parents figured after me they're not going for any more children. In any event, I had a very good life, and I went to school, a vocational school, and the World War II broke out, and the War Department asked me if I would go to school for them and be assigned in the military with a G2 clearance, which was to work on secret equipment. So my Army life was very good from my viewpoint. My schooling was 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, for 4 months in New York, 5 months in Chicago, same time, and 5 months in Philadelphia. After Philadelphia, I was drafted in the Army and assigned to do my MOS specialty, which was military occupational specialty. My story is a very short one, and this is about one of the Bader boys. My brother Leslie was a navigator, and he was in the Marianas, and where they had the B-29s. During World War II, with the ability to bomb the enemy cities, we did not have the technology that we have today, where you have radar and you know what's going on in these cities. So his bomber, with the crew of 10, and Leslie as a navigator, would go over Japan, look at 2 cities, and radio back to the bombers for them to come out en masse and drop their bombs to do damage to the cities. Now, in addition to that, they had to stay there and take pictures of the results. We had no way of knowing what the results were. For the B-29 to have sufficient fuel to make the round trip, they could carry no armament at all. So here's a plane looking over Japan, picking out 2 cities, and radioing back. On the way home, on one of his missions, the flak from the Japanese knocked out one of their engines. Well, a B-29, the largest bomber that we had, and with not having enough fuel to get back, they received a radio announcement that the Marines had captured Iwo Jima. And knowing that, they landed their plane on the airfield in Iwo Jima. The Marines were still fighting on the island, and of course the mission of the crew was stay here at Iwo Jima until we send a plane for you to take you back to Tinian in the Marianas. Well, they offered the crew, they said, we have a bachelor's officers' quarters up on a hill. The 10 of you can sleep up there overnight if you want to, and won't have to sleep on the field. And with that, the 10 of them went up there to go to sleep. However, they couldn't sleep because the fighting was going on the island with the Marines and the Japanese, and they decided they'll go back down and sleep under the wing of their plane. Well, that's exactly what they did. They slept under the wing of their plane, and the next morning, they looked up on the hill. There was no barracks there. They called their plane Padres Angels. And that's a short story of an experience, an exciting story of people who are fighting for our country and experiences that they have lived with.
Thank you, Bob, for that very emotional, patriotic story, and also the story about Helen's garden. It's a moment for all of us to think about, sharing food that we grow with those who are needy, and remembering the contribution of men and women in World War II and other conflicts. And Bob, you are one of North Shore Tower's greatest assets. I'm not going to embarrass you by telling everyone your age, but you are a remarkable man and a role model for everyone. Thank you so much for coming down today and sharing these two stories.
Thank you, Fred, for the ability to spread the good life that I had and the good life that I have at the most wonderful place, North Shore Towers. Thank you.